Hello guys, here Gabby again. We are going to talk about a little bit about object-oriented programming done right with abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So we could say that most developers they use object-oriented programming, but for example in real microservices is often misused. Too much inheritance, code-based classes, tight coupling, and systems that are hard to change. So in this short video, we could talk about a little about how the abstraction, the inheritance, and polymorphism are actually used in .NET 8 microservices. Um, so uh, let's say that we misuse inheritance, our system becomes rigid. If we miss the abstraction, our system becomes coupled, and if we do not use polymorphism, our architecture lies. So that's it. No inheritance, it's rigid. We miss abstraction, we are coupled, and if we do not use polymorphism, our architecture lie. So let's enter in a little of context. What could be abstraction? What is abstraction to you? We could say simple as a contract, an interface, but abstraction means focusing on what something does, not how it does it. So for example, we have a service, we have the implementation of that service in the application layer, but we could also have the interface of that service that declares what does that service. Okay, so the abstraction means we are focusing on what something does, not how it does it. In practice, abstraction is defining contracts. It's a contract, interfaces, or abstract classes that express expected behavior while hiding implementation details. Okay? We are expressing the intention of what we are going to do or what we do. Okay? Thus, this is the foundation of decoupling. In our microservices, the abstraction layer, all the abstraction resides mainly in the application layer. Okay? For example, in application layer, we can define interfaces like a payment gateway, a customer repository, and this layer, the application project, the application layer, does not know and must not know whether the implementation of the payment of the customer is done with repositories, with entity framework core, if it's HTTP, a third-party SDK, or is it a mock. We only know the contract. The contract as abstraction that we tell, we focus on what something does. We have a gateway of the payment and a repository of a customer. Okay, that's that's what it does. It's that the abstraction allows us to change implementations without touching the business logic. That's because we can change how we retrieve the information of a payment or of a customer without knowing inside the technical details. We only know what it does. So when inheritance, on the other hand, when inheritance can go wrong, okay? Inheritance allows, or for example, allows a class to reuse behavior from another class. It represents a real is-a relationship. A is a B. Okay, so, and yes, it can be helpful, but in real microservices, inheritance is the most abused object-oriented programming feature. Deep hierarchies, massive base classes, and hidden coupling. That's why we use inheritance very, very carefully. In our systems, inheritance is limited to very technical base classes or real well-defined shared domain concepts. Inheritance is not the default. Our key role is that Bad inheritance creates rigidity, and rigid systems do not scale. Polymorphism is the real power. Polymorphism is the ability to treat different implementations on the same abstraction uniformly. Okay? Our code depends on an interface, and at the runtime, a concrete implementation is executed. As we said before, for example, the application depends on an abstraction, a contract, an interface that is called payment gateway, iPayment gateway. Okay, at runtime, iPayment gateway can be implemented with two different providers, and we do not know as application what's going on. Okay, so the handler doesn't change, the behavior changes. Okay, that's the real flexibility. That's how we integrate external providers without contaminating the business logic, because we already have the gateway of payment, but we can change the implementation with different providers at any time. We can have one provider, two providers, and providers. We do not know. That resolves in runtime tempo. So how this work with a clean architecture? Everything fits together because the application defines the abstractions, the infrastructure provides the implementations, and dependency injection enables polymorphism. Okay, I will repeat that. Dependency injection enables polymorphism. As a result, the domain and use cases are protected. Technical details stay replaceable, and external providers can change without rewriting the system. We can swap a payment provider, change the HTTP to messaging or an event, or replace the entity framework core internals without touching the domain layer or the application layer. Okay? Because all that resides on the infrastructure layer. So, common mistakes we have to avoid. We have to avoid build deep inheritance trees, create massive base classes, and use inheritance just to reuse code. Instead, we prefer the abstraction with interfaces, composition, or polymorphism via dependency injection. As a final summary, clear and practical, we are going to define very clear topics for the three of them: the abstraction, the polymorphism, and the inheritance. Okay, the abstraction are the interfaces in the application. Define what is needed and hide the implementation details. Okay, they are the contracts, they are the interfaces, and it is the what, the contract, and the interfaces. Okay, and hides implementation. On the other hand, the polymorphism has multiple implementations. It's enabled by dependency injection, and the behavior changes, but the code doesn't. Okay, because we can have, as we said before, we use it through an abstraction, a gateway, for example, that could have multiple implementations that are resolved at runtime tempo. And inheritance, I will not recommend it. It's for a relationship, and that's it. I think abstraction and polymorphisms are the backbone of the modern architecture that we are talking about lately with microservices, and that's it. I hope this clarifies something to you. Hope it helps, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.